This is Where Are They Now on steroids. Coming up next, an interview with an artist that had a bunch of hits in the 70s. These hits will definitely take you back to a simpler time. He was known back then by just one name. Well, today we solve the mystery of the real man behind that pseudonym and get the stories of his biggest hits, including a song that was co-written by his dog. It's a really funny story. Also, there's the song that came from his crush on his high school teacher. It became a smash hit, topped the charts in 7 different countries, including hitting number 2 here in America. Let's do it. Hey, music junkies. I'm excited for another edition of our show, Revelations, where featured artists reveal compelling stories behind their greatest songs and albums, stories you won't hear anywhere else. Now, if you lived through the 70s or listened to radio after that, you definitely know today's artist's songs, really like the back of your hand. He was known back then as one name, Lobo. He had 4 number 1 hits on the AC charts that were also huge hits on the Hot 100, including his classic Me and You and a Dog Named Boo. Me and you and a dog named Boo, how I love. And I'd Love You to Want Me. Baby, you love me to want you. As well as Don't Expect Me to Be Your Friend. So don't expect me to be your friend. And Where Were You When I Was Falling in Love? When I was falling in love. In fact, Lobo had 8 hits in the 70s, and then he disappeared. And we'll find out why next and reveal who the real man is behind the name in this interview. Let's do it. Well, after releasing 3 singles, you had your breakthrough with Me and You and a Dog Named Boo. Me and You and a Dog Named Boo. I love the vivid imagery that you portray in the narrative. It just kind of feels like we're along for the ride, a third passenger. Oh, how I wish we were back on the road again. But tell me about Me and You and a Dog Named Boo. Very interesting story behind the song.
I had the guitar and I'm trying to rhyme. My mother's voice rings in my head. It's not you and me, it's you and I, and so I'm trying to rhyme you and I can't. I had a dog named Boo. Everybody thinks I made this up, but I did. It was a German Shepherd. Her name was Boo because she was scary looking. She was the gentle, sweetest dog in the world. I also had a Basset Hound, which had 6 puppies. Basset Hound Mama came first, and puppy, 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 puppy. And then Boo came last because she was so gentle. And when she stuck her head around the corner, and I'm trying to rhyme you, it's like eerie to me almost. Every time I think about that, it was like, I guess that's the way it was supposed to be. I already had I remember to this day, the bright red Georgia clay. The bright red Georgia clay. That's the only part of that song that I had experienced because I'd been to Atlanta and my cousin lived up there. In my mind, when I started it, Me and a Dog Named Boo, traveling and living off the land, once I got that, it went into... Like, I can still recall the wheat fields of St. Paul. I've heard 1,000 times. There are no wheat fields in St. Paul. Recall the wheat fields of St. Paul. It's, and I said, well, I didn't know. How would I know? L.A., I'll never forget the day we motored stately into big L.A. We motored stately into big L.A. What's this old beat-up car? Lights of the city put settling down in my brain. It's only been a month or so, but our car's telling us to go. We got to get back and get on the road again. We got to get away and get back on the road again. It's all in my mind, and still, when I hear that song today, I'm with you. I'm on that trip. It was what I aspired to do. Back in those days, driving a car across country was a dream,
You were saying that the story sounds kind of hokey. I think it's a cool story about how that your dog came around the corner and it gave you what you needed on the lyric. It was inspiration.
It's true.
And this might sound like a hokey question, but Boo might have needed a writing credit there. Just kidding.
Cheers.
Me and you and a dog named Boo.
Did you have a gut feeling when you wrote it that you knew it was something special?
When I wrote songs in those days, as quick as I could put something down, and I usually took 3 or 4, I would go to Phil's office with a a demo tape. I'll never forget, man. I'm going down the road. It's dark. 7 o'clock. I knew WLS in Chicago was playing it. And you can get WLS in Florida on AM radio, and it's fading in. WLS Chicago. I choke up even trying to tell you this now. I'm going down the road, and it faded out. And it faded back in, and it was playing the song. Oh, I can't explain to you what an affirmation was of life in general, and then it just went crazy. But that first time on WLS will stick in my mind forever. It's just perfect. It faded out and faded back in, and it's on the song. What are the chances of that?
Another tank of gas and back on the road again.
I used to ask that question a lot. Do you remember the first time you heard your song on the radio? Because everybody has a different story about that. And, it's really sad that that's a lost art.
Yeah, that's right. Here's what he says to me. Phone rings, I pick it up. I said, hello. And he said, it's a smash. I said, what do you mean? I said, how do you know that? He said, well, WLS in Chicago has been playing it. They got the first record order. I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, they ordered 20,000 records, the first order. And that was like unheard of. So that was the first real deal.
Old MacDonald, he made us work, but then
people ask you how you write songs. You have to have a gift to be able to put the parts together, but you don't know where it came from. I have no musical training. I bought that Martin guitar right there because I said, if I buy a good guitar, I'll play and learn to play better. And I did make payments on it. I've had that guitar 55 years or 56 years. I played it on every record I ever made. But it's that connection. That's my favorite thing in the whole world.
the lights of the city put settling down in my brain.
My sound was created, you'll love this. I had a 4-track TAC, but I didn't have a board. So I had 4 tracks. I'd do a guitar and a vocal, and then they would come together in the middle. But you're hearing a guitar and a guitar and a voice and a voice. And it created a sound that if you listen to my records, they sound to me like me playing a guitar with a string section behind me.
I really felt like you set up the story with that very first line, or the first verse. I remember to this day, the bright red Georgia clay, how it stuck to the tires after the summer rain.
How it stuck to the tires after the summer rain.
The other thing that people miss in that song is willpower made that old car go. A woman's mind told me that's so.
A woman's mind told me that's so.
Otherwise, she was telling me, if you think good thoughts, the car will keep going. But that's always missed. People have no idea what I'm saying on that.
No, it's only been a month or so.
Boo, huge hit. Cruised number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Went to number 1 on the AC charts, number 4 in the UK. Went to number 1 in New Zealand.
Yeah, I did a lot. I toured New Zealand one time. Australia and New Zealand, I wasn't prepared for it, but I did it. The first time I was out of the country, it was all the way to Australia and New Zealand. Met by film crews, and I'm here I am, what? I wasn't prepared for that. I was a club guy that was putting myself through college.
How I love being a free man.
Well, then came 72. You released your second solo record of A Simple Man, and your career just skyrocketed from there. It was the second single from that album, I'd Love You to Want Me.
Baby, you love me to want you.
That was another massive smash. Now, when you started composing I'd Love You to Want Me, was your aim to write a big ballad? Or
Yes, I was, and the songs that I had in my mind were Baby, Baby, Don't Get Hooked on Me.
Baby, baby, don't get hooked on me.
Of course, Without You, Nielsen, that's just untouchable.
you couldn't escape that song.
If living is without you, I can't.
Harry Nielsen was just absolutely. He was the Beatles' favorite singer, remember? And so I had that big ballad thing. And once again, here I am with my little guitar, wang, wang. And we got through with it. And Phil said, it's too long. It goes over 4 minutes. They won't play it. We've got to cut time out. And I'm sitting there with the guitar, and I just went, when I saw you stand. And that ended up that having to do a technical change in the arrangement ended up being jockeys didn't talk over it because it came in almost cold.
When I saw you standing there.
Once they knew the song and it was a hit, it just came on. It came on bang when I saw you standing there. And it's still, we did that song in Atlanta. We went to New York, put strings, and Robert John and Michael Gately.
I see the one.
And then we went back to Atlanta and did more overdubs, and then went back to Atlanta and put more back to New York. That's when Ellie Greenwich and Robert John and Mike Gately came back in, and it was like a chorus. And they started, and Ellie came up to that, and then, yeah. It grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And it ended up being, and it's still by far the most played of my song. I'd like to say I remember writing it, but I do know that I rewrote it. I had to rewrite lines, and Phil was good about that. He would say, I think you can do a better line. He would try to get in there and put a line in himself. And that particular song, we spent more time and more money and everything on that, and remixed it, and on and on and on and on. And it shows in that it's very unique for being a ballad because of the guitar again.
Took time for me to know.
It's all that. It's like a guy playing in the back room, wang, wang. That's why you can play it freely. Every song I've ever written, anybody that knows the guitar can play them, and that's just because that's all I know, So you do what you do,
Something in my soul just cried.
Hey, I've heard some of the most technical masters of all say, hardest thing in the world to do is write a simple pop song that everybody will sing along to. That's the hardest thing in the world to do.
I'll tell you that the strangest, one of the strange things in my career that I found to be strange is the first show in Hong Kong, and I'm playing a couple of songs, and they keep yelling something. And the outside show, 5,000 outside, 15,000 in the building looking down. And finally, I said to the drummer, what are they yelling? He said, they're yelling Stony. I said, Stony? That was just an album about this hokey little song I wrote. That thing is a huge hit in that part of the world. They call it a campfire song.
I've known her since we both were kids.
The next night I played it, and all of Hong Kong sang it. And that was an eye-opener for me because I had no idea that was even known.
Stony, how I love your simple ways.
Going back to Love You Want Me, you went back when you were a senior in high school in your mind to rediscover a strong feeling you had. I mean, we've all been there. Tell me about that.
Miss Norton was, I can't remember if she was an art teacher. I think she was the vocal teacher because we had an operetta. And I never really sung, but I ended up being in it. And she was real pretty. And we were, 14, where we knew what a girl was or woman was. And so when my original thought on I Love You to Want, when I saw you standing there about 5 minutes here, when you moved your mouth to speak, I felt the blood go to my feet.
I felt the blood go to my feet.
That line, I felt the blood go to my feet. I was going to cut this. They wanted to change that line and take part of writing. And I said no, because we'd already recorded. I don't know why. That would have been, if they had a big hit on it, it would have been bigger than what I had, but it wouldn't have been part of me like it is. But I had this, originally I was going to write about a nun. And because I once wrote a song called All the Children Love Sister Mary, but Sister Mary, it's not the same, because you don't have your own child. But I started thinking about it, and I said, I got away from that. And so it was Miss Norton in my mind. But I had that's where the whole thing came. And I think the reason that song was so big is there are lines in there that the obligation that you made for the title that they gave. What does that mean?
For the title that they gave.
Well, it means they gave you the title of being a teacher, and in those days you didn't cross that line. But something in my soul just cries, I see the want in your blue eyes. She was coming at me too, and that's not really the way it was.
See the want in your blue eyes.
There's your mind going, your mind making up this stuff, and you just go with it. It just comes out. You write it down. You record it.
You're a poet. You have so many great lines in these songs. Like you already said, when you moved your mouth to speak, I felt the blood go to my feet. I mean, that's a line that nails the breathtaking euphoria when you have a crush, and the obligation you made. Yeah, I mean, these are great lines.
I found that if I'm true to myself when I'm writing, otherwise what I think I should say, for me, it ends up being the right thing.
If you only let it be.
It's one of my favorite things to tell people. In the continent of North America, with the exception of when I was playing a show somewhere, I have had one person come up to me at a rest stop in Canada and said to me, "Aren't you Lobo?" One time, 50 years. That was my decision to make. I stayed out of everything. I had a publicist for 1 year, and I had a manager for a couple of years. It started getting bigger than I needed to cope with it. I live a very simple life. I mean, I had a Lamborghini back when nobody knew what a Lamborghini was. I've done the jet set thing, but it doesn't work for me. I'm not a complicated person. I wrote a song one time called "She Took It Too Well," and it's about I tried to get the nerve to tell her that I was going to break up with her, and when I told her, she took it too well.
She took it too well.
That's how they took me, saying I don't want to give you another album, and they took that too well. I went back to Florida, and that was it, until I went to Nashville and fiddled around in the country for a few years. But yeah, I walked out. It's not anybody's fault but mine. I said, I can't, I'm bigger than I ever thought I would be, and I can't even fit in these shoes. So I got to go back and grouper fish.
I think it's great. I think it's great that that's how you look at it.
I chose this path, and I've lived with it, and it's fine for me. I've had a good time.
I mean, you've had a great career. Eight hits.
I just write songs and sing. It's the only difference between you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Lobo and all these songs. What are your memories of these songs? What do you remember about them? Man, he had so many hits. I love these stories about these guys that have all these hits and then they just disappear. And we find out who they are in the story. And he's a great story there. Leave us a comment and also subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, free chords and the truth, my friends.